Hello and welcome to the BA Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be going over the NFL QB 2024 preview and giving you my sleepers, breakouts, and busts to look out for, as well as my top 25 QBs. Some of these have shifted because of some news today, but we're going to be going over it all right now. And let's get right into it. Let's get started. Let's get started with some of my tiers of quarterbacks. We're going to go over the tiers first, the top 25 rankings in general, and then I'll get into my breakouts, some sleepers, and some busts to avoid in this year's draft. So, starting out, I actually have Mahomes as my number one quarterback right now. Jalen Hurts at number two, Josh Allen number three. Josh Allen has finished as the top QB over the past 4 years. He's been QB1, QB2, QB1, QB1. So he's been QB1 3 of the last 4 years, QB2 in the lone year he didn't make QB1. He loses a big weapon in Stephon Diggs, but his ability to use his legs will still make him a top rushing quarterback once again. And I believe he has more value in a 4 point per passing touchdown league where the rushing quarterbacks seem to always have a greater value. The big loss is Stephon Diggs, but they did add Keon Coleman in the draft. He's got Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and second-year tight end Dalton Kincaid. So they have added to this wide receiving core with Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. Dalton Kincaid is expected to take a step up. Khalil Shakir is also expected to take a step up. He performed pretty well at the end of last year. Excited to see what he's got. He's one of my sleepers. Jalen Hurts has arguably one of the best receiving duos in the league in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. He's also got Paris Campbell at wide receiver 3, so a little bit of a fall off. It'll be interesting to see who steps up at that wide receiver 3 position for Philadelphia, and they've also got Dallas Goedert. Mahomes, they just added more weapons for him. I mean, last year was a down year for him, and I think he's being really undervalued right now. He actually is going as QB2. He's going in the third round. QB3 in some ADP. He's falling behind Hurts in some ADPs. It really depends on what format, what your league is in, Sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo, etc. I would look out for Patrick Mahomes as being a good value because people are kind of low on him after the bad season he had. He finished QB 14, I believe, in points per game last year. Let me confirm that really quick. Yep, QB 14 behind Justin Fields in per game. Not great last year for Mahomes. Now, I think that is 4 point per passing touchdown. He is higher valued in 6 point per passing touchdown leagues just because of his ability to throw those touchdowns. And my gosh, he's got weapons at all sorts. He has arguably his best weapon since he lost Tyreek Hill. I mean, Rashee Rice, year 2 player, he's going to take a step up. Marquise Brown is playing with the best quarterback he'll ever probably play with. Xavier Worthy, a rookie who is very speedy. Now, he's not the biggest guy, but he is fast. And you got Travis Kelce. I think Kelce and Rashee Rice provide that intermediate to short routes for this offense. I think Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown can take the top off of defense. And I think with that combo, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to excel. That's why I have him as my QB1. Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to take a step up as my QB2. Kellen Moore is going to help his passing. They also mentioned that they're not going to shy away from his rushing ability. They're going to have some design QB runs in that offense, which will be nice to see. Now, I don't know how the tush push is going to work this year. No Jason Kelce, he's retired. They do have Saquon, and adding Saquon, I think, helps open up this offense, helps open up this passing game a little bit more. And having a running back who is as good as Saquon in this offense could really help Jalen Hurts. Now, Saquon could take some goal line rushing touchdowns away from Jalen Hurts, which is a reason to be cautious about Jalen Hurts. But I think his added value in the passing game is going to keep him in this tier 1 and at QB2, which is why I have him there, because I think he is going to be a better passer than Josh Allen this year. He has the better weapons, and I think he has the better, I don't know, better offensive coordinator, maybe. We'll see about that. He also plays in the NFC East, so he doesn't have to deal with too tough of defenses like the Patriots usually have a tough defense. Miami's defense has fallen off, so Josh Allen should take advantage of that. The Jets' defense is as good as always. Jalen Hurts really, I think, only has to probably worry about the Cowboys' defense in his division. The Giants, though, are a sleeper. So that's my tier 1, Mahomes, Hurts, Allen. Let's go into tier 2. I've got Lamar at QB4, Anthony Richardson at QB5, Joe Burrow at QB6, and CJ Stroud at QB7. I think CJ Stroud could move into that QB6 ranking, but I have him at 7 right now. He arguably has one of the best wide receiving trios in the league. Lamar Jackson, though, second year in this Todd Monken offense. Zay Flowers, second year in the offense as well. They don't have Odell this year, but they do have Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, and Mark Andrews to go with Zay Flowers. Lamar's got weapons. I believe he's going to throw the ball. He was QB3 last year in points per game, so I have him at QB4. I think he could move into the tier 1. I don't have him there quite yet. Maybe he moves up higher for me. Time will really tell. And right now, ADP wise, Lamar is going QB4, but him, Mahomes, and Hurts are all going really close together, and Josh Allen is super high. I would say my strategy in taking a quarterback, I probably would not be the first one to take a quarterback this year. The value at quarterback is super high. I mean, there's about 12 quarterbacks I feel super comfortable with and starting in a league. And I would say even up to 16 or 17 quarterbacks I'd feel comfortable starting. And we'll get into those later. But Lamar, I really like Lamar. Not only does he have the passing ability, and I think Todd Monken's going to unlock that even more, just like he did last year, but that rushing ability is unimaginable. Add Derrick Henry to this offense. It's going to be fun to watch. Now, Derrick Henry can take rushing touchdowns away from Lamar Jackson, just like I was talking about. Saquon Barkley will take rushing touchdowns away from Jalen Hurts. I would be more cautious about Derrick Henry taking Lamar's rushing touchdowns rather than Saquon taking Jalen Hurts, because Hurts is a big body. Lamar, I don't know if they want to get him hurt around the goal line. Now he can score from 50 yards out running the ball. So there is that for Lamar. And I think Lamar is just, I mean, he was defending MVP. Like, we're going to see what he's got, and I think he's going to be better in the pass game. QB5, Anthony Richardson. My gosh, last year, I'll get into him later, but last year he was QB11 in points per game, and now that's not taking into account what he actually did produce in the first 2 games. I believe he was top 3 in points per game in the first 2 games. They added a weapon in Adonai Mitchell. His receiving core is Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, and Jelani Woods. Yes, I'm slotting Jelani Woods in there at the starting tight end position because I believe Jelani Woods is going to be the starter. He is a stud and such a big target for Anthony Richardson. Not only can Anthony Richardson sling the rock downfield, probably has one of the best arms in the NFL besides Patrick Mahomes, but he can also run it for a really, really good amount of yards. He had through 4 games, 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown per game for Anthony Richardson last year. He was only a rookie. Now I need him to stay healthy this year because he needs playing time, and in order to be a top performing quarterback in this league. And with all these weapons he's got, they've added around him, not to mention Jonathan Taylor. I think he's set to excel this year in Indy. And QB6 for me, Joe Burrow. Not much more I can say about Joe Burrow, but 5 and 6, man, if both of these guys stay healthy, they are dangerous to watch out for. Joe Burrow last year hurt. Jamar Chase was banged up. T. Higgins was banged up. They were all banged up. If they can all be healthy, they added wide receiver Jermaine Burton from Alabama in the draft. They also have tight end Mike Gesicki listed as their number 1 tight end on their depth chart. So that's an added target for Joe Burrow. But my gosh, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton, if all 3 of those guys can stay healthy for Joe Burrow, this offense could be electric. Now, they did lose their offensive coordinator to Tennessee, which may take a hit on Joe Burrow. And I'm not really drafting Joe Burrow in this range. Currently, he's going in round, I believe, 5 or 6. Let's see. He's going at the beginning of round 6, end of round 5, depending on the league size that you're in. It's going to be interesting to see here. Let's see. Yeah, he's going right around 76th overall. So I think he's pushing up into round 6 right now from what I'm showing. So yeah, Joe Burrow pushing into round 6, early round 6. I would be very cautious about drafting Joe Burrow. CJ Stroud, another one to be cautious about. He's going even higher than Burrow. He's going in round 4, early round 5, late round 4, early round 5. He could also be going, let's see here, late round 5. So he's in the 4 to 5 range. It really depends on your league mates and how they draft quarterbacks, but I'm talking about single QB leagues right now. Although CJ Stroud has Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, I think that he can be the overall QB1 this year, but I am not taking him in round 5. Round 6, I would consider it. Late round 6, though, I just don't want to take a QB before round 6, in my opinion. I think there's too much value later on, and I think I can hold off. But CJ Stroud has that potential to be QB1. I mentioned it on my last show. There's only been one quarterback, I believe, to do this twice, support 3 wide receivers in the top 24 of PPR leagues. That was Peyton Manning. QB1 in 2004, QB2 in 2004, QB1 in 2013. Peyton Manning was dangerous with his weapons, and CJ Stroud could be the same way. He could support all 3 of them, but I expect him to only support 2 of them. It's tough to support 3 wide receivers in this NFL nowadays. Plus, they got Joe Mixon on the ground, so they could hand the ball off to him a lot more than people are expecting. But I still think CJ Stroud is going to be the focal point of this Texans offense. I'm ranking him at QB7. That is my tier 2. Tier 3. These are the guys who have the potential to get into the top 5. Dak Prescott, QB5 last year in points per game. Kyler Murray, he's been top 5 QB before in his career. He was hurt last year, performed really well at the end of the year. Last year, Kyler Murray, let's see here. In points per game, Kyler Murray was QB10. Now, that was coming off of an ACL tear, didn't have the greatest of weapons. They add Marvin Harrison Jr., arguably the best wide receiver in the last couple years. And not to mention, they have Michael Wilson also, who performed better when Kyler Murray was on the field. Trey McBride also did really well at the end of last year when Kyler Murray came back. They don't really have a wide receiver 3 listed on their depth chart right now. It's kind of up in the air. They lost Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore goes to the Falcons. So it's going to be interesting who takes that wide receiver 3 spot. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out in the preseason and in training camp. But Kyler Murray, I believe, is my best value at QB9. He's currently going around the 8th round, just after Jordan Love and Dak Prescott. They're like right around the same ADP, which is going to be interesting to see. So round 7, round 8, I expect Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott to go. If they're going in round 6, like Dak is right now at the end of round 6, it's a little questionable to me. I'd rather have Kyler Murray in round 8 or round 7. I may even take Jared Goff in round 9, and we'll get into him later. But I do like Kyler Murray. I think he is one of the best values in drafts, and that is why I'm waiting on a quarterback. Now, if I was in a bigger league, like say a 14-team league, 16-team league, you start getting up into some sketchy territory with quarterbacks around QB 16. Well, I would definitely go get a tier 1 or tier 2 quarterback, in my opinion. Those are going to be the difference makers. Now, sure, you could hit on a Caleb Williams later. You could hit on Kirk Cousins, and he just goes off and has a great year and is a top 10 quarterback. But if you want to have a difference maker at the QB position in those deeper leagues, I think that you should pull the trigger. It's going to be interesting to see how many of these quarterbacks actually perform well, because last year was a big down year for quarterbacks. So we will see. But I think Kyler Murray has some of the best value in the draft with the added weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr. And Jordan Love is my QB10, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Luke Musgrave, not to mention Dontavian Wicks, the wide receiver 4 in that offense. Now, they don't have Aaron Jones anymore, but they do have Josh Jacobs. I think this Packers offense is going to be good once again. Jordan Love worries me a little bit if he goes in the 6th or 7th round of your drafts. I would rather take Kyler Murray because I'm seeing Kyler Murray going after him. But I don't mind taking Jordan Love. I think he's going to have a good year, and that is my QB 10. My QB 11, Jared Goff, tier 4. Moving into tier 4, these are the guys that can move into the top 10 quarterbacks. We've seen it from him before. Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, and Brock Purdy. Those are my 3 tier 4 quarterbacks. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams as the wide receiver 2, Khalif Raymond as the wide receiver 3, and of course Sam Laporta as the tight end 1. Tua's got an added weapon this year, although he isn't healthy right now, trying to get healthy for the season. He actually has 2 added weapons, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, those 2 stud wide receivers, and he's got Odell Beckham coming in. That is a hell of a wide receiver 3. Jonnu Smith as the tight end 1, not a bad tight end 1 because he performed really well in Atlanta. I think he'll do the same in Miami. They need a tight end in this offense, and they have it with Jonnu Smith. Brock Purdy, not much more needs to be said about his weapons. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, and George Kittle. I think all these guys have the potential to move into the top 10, maybe creep in towards the top 8, but I don't think they have much higher to go than that. Their ceiling is a little bit capped. Tua needs to improve in his passing touchdowns. Jared Goff has a hell of a schedule to start out the year, and I'll get into him later. Brock Purdy is Brock Purdy, and I think he can be a top 8 quarterback, but I don't have him that high. He's my QB 13. Let's move into tier 5, though. Tier 5, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, the rookie, Justin Herbert, hurt in practice today. Big news coming out of training camp. He is hurt, and he is likely sidelined for 2 weeks, but is expected to be ready for week 1. Jaden Daniels is my QB 17. He could be higher. He is going higher in some league formats and some drafts, but he's my QB 17 right now. I don't really trust him all that much besides his rushing ability. We've seen Trevor Lawrence. He doesn't have Calvin Ridley anymore. He's got Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis added, Brian Thomas added, and well-known tight end Evan Ingram, familiar face in that offense. I think that Trevor Lawrence can improve, but he really needs to improve because they need him to do well, and he just hasn't been doing great. It's a little risky drafting him. This is the tier where it's like that's the risk is super high, but there are 2 quarterbacks in this tier that I like that have super high upside, and both of them are actually the rookies. Caleb Williams, arguably the best weapons for a rookie quarterback. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and Cole Kmet. My goodness, please tell me if a quarterback has had better weapons than Caleb Williams this year. This is my tier 5, by the way. Justin Herbert, I was kind of getting high on him, getting a little hype around him. But after that injury, it really concerns me. He doesn't have the greatest wide receiving core. Josh Palmer, Ladd McConkey, DJ Chark, Will Dissly, a tight end. It's not the greatest. I also expect them to run the ball in Jim Harbaugh's offense, and it's going to be interesting to see. But I don't love the Herbert situation, which is why he's fallen this low. Now, if he falls even further down because of this injury, I don't mind taking a shot on him, benching him, having him as your QB2 because he could provide upside. He is a great quarterback, but he doesn't have the greatest of weapons like some of these other players like Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, QB 17. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, Zach Ertz. Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are great. Jaden Daniels, this is arguably probably the worst weapons he's had. I mean, he had Malik Neighbors last year. Like, come on now. I don't know. Terry McLaurin's a good wide receiver, but he had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, I don't know if they can compare to those 2, but I do like those 2. I do like Jaden Daniels' rushing upside. I really like him in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, and his legs can get it done, and I think that's why he provides so much upside. Now, I do expect this Washington offense to pass quite a bit because their defense isn't all that great. And I think they could be trailing in games, which would result in Jaden Daniels throwing the ball a ton. That is my tier 5, though. I do like the rookies the best out of that tier. Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Jaden Daniels. Do love Caleb and Jaden the most. Now, tier 6, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, the old guys. the old guys that could possibly get you a top 10 finish going super late in drafts. Stafford's got Kupp and Nakua. If Kupp can stay healthy this year, man, he is one of the best wide receiving duos in the league. And let's not forget about Demarcus Robinson. He is one of the best wide receiver threes in the league. He came on at the end of last year. Tyler Higbee's a reliable tight end, but nothing to write home about. Kirk Cousins got Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Rondale Moore in this new Falcons offense, new offensive coordinator, and he's got Kyle Pitts. So it's going to be exciting to see how he will unlock Kyle Pitts' ability. And Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, who's hurt, but when he gets healthy, he is one of the better wide receiver twos in the NFL. I do like Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams as the duo in New York. Xavier Gibson is the wide receiver 3. Tyler Conklin, a reliable tight end around. We'll see how they do. I do like Aaron Rodgers. I do like Kirk Cousins, and I do like Matthew Stafford, but I'd rather have them as my QB2 rather than a QB1. So if you wait to take a quarterback in tier 6, be cautious because there's not much else behind them, and I'd probably take 2 back-to-back or something like that because it gets slim pickings from here on out. Tier 7 is really kind of a lot of upside possibly, or a really solid floor. Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, I think they have a decent floor, as a QB2. I wouldn't really expect them to be in the top 10 quarterbacks like some of the ones in the earlier tier 6 I just mentioned in Stafford, Cousins, and Rodgers. Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith do have a good wide receiver trio for both of them. Mike Evans, Godwin, Trey Palmer, K. Dotton for Baker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and then Jigba, and Noah Fant for Geno Smith. I do like both of them. However, I would not want them as my QB1. I want them as my QB2. So please don't wait this long to take a quarterback. Deshaun Watson, boomer bust. He could explode. He's got an added weapon in Jerry Jeudy. He's got Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, David Njoku. But I expect them to run the ball. They have a good run game. We saw it last year. Deshaun Watson worries me too much to take him. I'd rather have a second-year guy in this tier 7. Bryce Young, 24, Will Levis, 25. Bryce Young added weapons, Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette, Tommy Tremble at tight end, Adam Thielen. Now he has kind of some older wide receivers, but added young Xavier Legette in the second round of the draft this year. I think he's going to be a stud. He reminds me of Deebo Samuel a little bit. Calvin Ridley, added weapon for Will Levis. DeAndre Hopkins, sidelined, I saw for 4 to 6 weeks. Not great news for the Titans offense. He's also got Tyler Boyd and Chigo Okonkwo. I actually had Will Levis at 24 and Bryce Young at 25. I just flipped them. I think Bryce Young goes ahead of Will Levis after that DeAndre Hopkins injury. Wait to hear more on that, but it did not sound good from what I've heard. So be cautious drafting Will Levis. Those two at the end are kind of some higher upside, could possibly break out late QBs that you could take a flyer on. So that is my top 25 QBs. Let's get into some breakouts. Let's get into some sleepers, and let's get into some busts. Some breakouts. Anthony Richardson, like I said, QB 11 in points per game last year, but I believe since his first 2 weeks were QB1, QB2, top 3 quarterback, I think he's going to be a stud this year. Added weapon, Adonai Mitchell has one of the strongest arms, as I was talking about earlier, and Josh Downs and him have looked to be kind of gaining some traction in training camp and forming this really good connection. So that'd be really good to see. I love Anthony Richardson. Another breakout I have, Caleb Williams. In my tier 5 of quarterbacks, Caleb Williams has the potential to break out this year because of the weapons around him. Now, they do have some added continuity on that offensive line. They beefed it up a little bit. 4 out of 5 starters are returning. Cole Kmet is a reliable tight end, and I think Caleb Williams just has to perform. He has to perform at his best, and I think he can. And if he does, he's one of the best prospects in the past couple years. I mean, he's being compared to Patrick Mahomes. It'll be interesting to see, but I do not mind taking a flyer on him and getting him as a QB2. I would like taking like Kyler Murray and then Caleb Williams a little later. That would be a duo I'd love to see on my team in drafts this year. And those are my 2 breakouts this year. Some sleepers, Bryce Young, really being slept on. Not many people are really drafting him in the top 25. He's not even going in the top 25. So this is a guy you can get super late and I think provides super high upside. Now, it's nice because you don't have to spend a top pick on him. He's added new weapons. Dave Canales, his offensive scheme is great. It's worked for Baker. It's worked for Geno. The past 2 years, he's improved both of those offense. The Panthers also have the most salary cap dollars tied up in the offensive line this year. They could take a step forward with the addition of Hunt from the, I believe, Dolphins, and also 2022 first round pick Ekwonu, the tackle. His receivers completely different. Now, Adam Thielen was there last year, but they added Deontay Johnson, and this is why I think it is one of the best additions for Bryce Young. Among 24 qualified quarterbacks, Bryce Young ranked 4th in accurate throw rate when targeting an open receiver. Over the past 2 to 3 years, from 2021 to 2023, Deontay Johnson ranked number 1 in ESPN's open score. That is a rating that shows how open you are compared to other receivers. The other receivers and tight ends in this category: number 2 AJ Brown, number 3 Justin Jefferson, number 4 Mark Andrews, number 5 Tyreek Hill. Studs. Deontay Johnson's number 1 over all those guys, which is insane to think about. Some QBs we've seen break out in their second year. Brock Purdy last year, 31 passing touchdowns, NFL high 9.6 yards per attempt. 2022, Trevor Lawrence, 25 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He had 12 passing touchdowns and 17 interceptions as a rookie. 2022 again, Justin Fields. He had a 1,000-yard rushing season, 4th 1,000-yard rushing season by a QB in NFL history. Joe Burrow, 2021, first number 1 overall pick to reach the quarterback within his first 2 seasons. Really big breakout season from Joe Burrow that year. Lamar Jackson, 2019, his MVP season, unanimous MVP season. Passing touchdowns, led the league with 35 and set the single season rushing record. I mean, that was an insane year. And I remember I took Lamar at the end of my draft that year, just like Bryce Young is going this year at the end of drafts. And I think it can kind of be the same scenario. Now, granted, Bryce Young is not Lamar Jackson. He cannot rush as well as Lamar Jackson, but I believe that he provides a good passing upside and could probably perform more similar to like a Trevor Lawrence with 25 passing touchdowns and 8 interceptions in year 2. 2018, Mitchell Trubisky, 24 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 2018, Patrick Mahomes, MVP, 50 passing touchdowns in a season. Should we say more? 2017, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. Wentz threw for 33 touchdowns. Ended the season with the ACL tear. Jared Goff, 28 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He had an 0-7 record with 5 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions as a rookie. So Jared Goff took a big step up. I think Bryce Young can take a big step up. This is why I have him as a sleeper. Dave Canales, I think, is going to help him a lot. And I really like Bryce Young at the end of drafts this year, especially because he's practically free in all drafts. Jared Goff. All right, this is another one of my sleepers. Last year, 11-3 was his record in indoor games. 3-2 was his record in outdoor games. Lions do not play an outdoor game until week 9 on November 3rd. That's an insane value for a player who's not going to play outdoors until week 9. His ADP is QB 14. He's going around 116th overall. He could creep up more, but listen to these per game stats. 277 passing yards per game. He had a 69.8% completion percentage over the span of the 14 games indoors. He had 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, a QB rating of 106.4, and he was QB 6 in fantasy points per game. I love Jared Goff in indoor games, and I think it's just going to keep going. 3-2 in outdoor games. He had 252 passing yards per game. That's about 25 less passing yards per game. He had a 6% less completion percentage at 63.6 completion percentage. He only had 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He had an 82 QB rating, and he was QB 25 in fantasy points per game outdoors. Like I said, Lions do not play an outdoor game until week 9. Get Jared Goff on your team. He could be a stud this year in the first 9 weeks, and then maybe you trade him. Who's to say? And yeah, we'll see. But I don't mind grabbing Jared Goff where he's going, 116th overall. Now, granted, it really depends on where you're drafting. ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, they're all different. So make sure you see the ADP and where he falls on the board so you can kind of pin these guys for values, pin these sleepers for values. Another sleeper I've got, Kyler Murray. Why is he not going higher? Well, he's coming off of an ACL tear 2 years ago. He had 8 games last year. He performed really well. He's really going where he performed in points per game last year. He was QB 10. He's going around the QB 9, QB 10 range, right around Dak Prescott and Jordan Love. I like him more than both of those guys because those guys seem to creep up a little earlier in drafts. He's got a great rushing ability, and coming off an ACL tear last year, he couldn't run that great, but he still ran the ball pretty well. Well, usually it takes 2 years to fully recover. Like Brees Hall, I mean, stud of a specimen. Adrian Peterson, both of those guys performed really well after their ACL tear in year 1. But I think after these 2 years, Kyler Murray will be back on track running the ball. He is one of the best wide receivers, as I was talking about earlier, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch Kyler Murray, and I think this offense, I think the Cardinals are being slept on right now. Their head coach is really good, and I think that they are kind of an underdog this year, and I think they could do well. All right, I've got 2 busts. We're going to go with, for the ADP, I'm not in on Joe Burrow right now at the ADP. Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud are going super high, but I think I'd rather have CJ Stroud over Joe Burrow, possibly. But right now, Stroud is going way too high for my liking, but I just am not a fan of either of them. Those guys, I don't really see a bust happening for Stroud. I see a bust happening possibly for Joe Burrow. It really depends on his wide receiver health. And as we've seen, they really can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy. It just worries me too much. I'm not a fan of taking a quarterback that early, and I'd rather wait till my tier 3 of quarterbacks with Dak, Kyler, Jordan Love, even my tier 4 with Jared Goff or Tua, and maybe just combine one of those 4 with a high upside play like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or maybe Bryce Young. Jordan Love could be another one if he keeps creeping up. I'm not really in on his ADP if he keeps going higher. If he somehow starts going higher than Dak Prescott, give me Kyler Murray instead. Give me Dak Prescott instead. I get it. Jordan Love is a good QB. He was QB 6 in points per game last year, but it worries me. He is another one of my busts to watch out for. And especially this one right here, I am completely out on taking him. Justin Herbert, I know he's going late, but he just got hurt. It really just, that was it for me. He got hurt, his foot, he has a foot injury. Now he's going to be able to play week 1 based on the news we were hearing, but I am totally out on Justin Herbert. I would rather have Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I may even rather have Stafford or Kirk Cousins. Like, I get it. He's a good quarterback, but this offense is not going to throw the ball. He does not have the weapons that are going to be primed for a breakout season for Justin Herbert. Caleb Williams has the weapons to primed for a breakout season, but Justin Herbert does not have the weapons. I am super worried about him. He's hurt right now, and it just is not looking good. That is my bust. Just to recap what we're going over, this is the QB preview, a 30-minute episode. It's a quick episode. So we went over my top 25 quarterback rankings, all of the tiers, and I'm going to post all of this on X. If you're following me on the X, you'll see it there. If you're not following me on the X, make sure to follow me on the X or Twitter. I like calling it Twitter. I just do not like X, but follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you like to call it. We went over my top 25 quarterbacks, some breakouts, sleepers, and busts. Just to recap, breakouts: Anthony Richardson, Caleb Williams. Sleepers: Bryce Young, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray. Busts: Burrow, maybe Stroud if he keeps creeping up. Not a fan of it. And also Justin Herbert. Do not like Justin Herbert. Jordan Love, if he keeps creeping up as well, will be a bust for me. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this quarterback preview episode. If you have any questions about the quarterback position, fantasy drafts, just please let me know. I really think this year is the year to not reach for a top quarterback unless you're in a super deep league and you want to get an edge on the competition. But I think this is a year where you can wait. Now we're coming off one of the worst years for quarterbacks ever. Like Josh Allen, I think had the least amount of points for top QB1 since like 2014, which is not great. I think that this year, with Patrick Mahomes added weapons, Jalen Hurts, new offense, new offensive coordinator, Lamar Jackson could do well. We need a healthy Anthony Richardson, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud. We could see some really high performing quarterbacks this year. But yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter or the X. Follow me wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow the BA Sports Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Wherever you find podcasts, make sure to give it a follow and a rating. I would really appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening to this NFL Fantasy QB preview. If you're watching live, thank you for watching live. And yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend.